Amanda.
And I'm Mel.
And this is the Road Back Home podcast. Well, hello everybody. It's Amanda here. And this will be a different episode than we are all used to, myself included. You might notice that I am outside. I decided to go for a walk, and I thought maybe I would do a walk and talk as opposed to, just as a change from our regular episodes. This is a solo episode, and I didn't want to sit in my chair in my office talking at you on some topic. And so I thought that I would bring you with me on a walk, and we would just take a time out to be in nature together. I do have some guests lined up that I am looking forward to introduce you to, but I don't have anything organised, so this is what we're doing today. I'm out on one of my favourite walks nearby. It is a lovely nature loop. It's called the Pollocks is what it's called, and it is in a town called Bird Hill that is just a very short drive from where I live. So I'm walking under a tree now, and you can hear the busy chatter of those birdies up there. There's something so soothing about birds. So, going for walks like this, for me, is something that is quite new. For years, walking for me was a form of exercise that I did as a performance to diet culture. It was a way that I, accumulated points or cancelled out points that I had eaten that I shouldn't have eaten. It was something I did to work up a sweat, raise my heart rate, all of those things. Never in the service of fitness, but always in the service of fear, really, of what would happen to my body if I wasn't controlling it on some level. So it's only in the last few years that I have reclaimed my right to go for a stroll for no other reason than to just check out and check in, just leave behind all the productivity and all the demands of modern life and all the things I should be doing, and to just let myself be a person walking on a beautiful path. And so, as I'm doing this, I am going to bringing you with me, and I'm going to try my best to give you an experience of this. Molly is with me, and Molly is my newly adopted 2-year-old Cavachon, who is an absolute dream. She's like a real life teddy bear, and it's so funny because I had my previous dog Ted. I had him for 16 years, and we had a wonderful life together, and he was, we were so well matched and we were so well suited. And I used to say, that Ted was the perfect dog for me. And when Ted left, I was very, I started to miss Ted even before he left. About 6 months before he left, he stopped being able to come with me in the car, and he kind of lost interest in walking and playing ball. So a lot of the ways that we spent time together ended about 6 months before he left. And so I would say he's, like afterwards, I was like, I will never, how could I ever repeat that? Like, will I ever find an animal so well, like a dog so well suited to me again? And I just gave it time. And then, about just over a month ago, maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago, because I had been wondering for the whole year, I was wondering, will I go again? And I told myself I will just know when I'm ready. I'm not going to agonize about it, but I'm not going to rush into anything, and I will just know when I'm ready. And then about 5 weeks ago, I just declared one day, it was a Wednesday, and interestingly, my niece had been born on the Monday. And I wonder now, had that got anything to do with the impetus that kind of moved me, because I had been broody, I was broody not for a baby, I was broody for a dog. And I knew that I didn't want, or I didn't have the capacity for a pup. I knew just the way that my life was set up, that wasn't going to work out either for me or for the pup. And that I wanted to adopt. And I was in that space, knowing that was what I was, the direction I was going. And I also knew what I needed to look for in order for it to be a compatible match. And so I had a criteria. And I was sitting on it and sitting with it and not taking action on it. And then my niece was born on a Monday, and maybe it had something to do with it. I don't know, maybe not. But on the Wednesday, I was in work, and I just loudly declared in a moment, that's it, I'm ready. And one of my work colleagues was turned around with no context whatsoever, of course, turned around to me and was like, what? What are you talking about? I said, I'm ready for a dog. I'm going to talk to my friend about it. My friend was due down to me on Thursday, and we were spending time together on the Friday. And my friend works in the dog business, let's say, and she's very friendly with a woman who rehomes dogs who've been either surrendered or abandoned or whatever. And so I was going to talk to my friend on the Friday about my readiness and to have her, help me find my dog. And so we spoke on the Friday, and on the Saturday, my friend went to her friend, the rescuer, and what she had said to me when I told her my criteria for a dog, my friend said, he could be a while waiting for that. And that was on Friday. And when my friend went to the rescue centre on the Saturday, she sent me a message, an image of a dog. She said, you're not going to believe it, your dog is here. She's literally everything that you have said that you want in a dog. And she had been surrendered on the day that I declared that I was ready. So I made sure to go get out there very fast, and knew immediately, the minute I met Molly, that it was going to work. And that's how that unfolded. And it is a match made in heaven, and she feels very much like just, Ted in lots of ways, only a much smaller version. So how lucky am I to have a second love story when it comes to my furry friend. So that is your introduction to Molly, who's walking with me on this path, and she loves it. There's lots to sniff. So during the time that I was reclaiming my relationship, or my right to just go for a walk, just because, for for reasons other than, diet, for reasons other than I have to, for reasons even other than fitness. I was never interested in fitness, but for reasons even other than health, for spiritual reasons, walking as a form of connection, both to myself, to the world, and a kind of a time out, like I said, from the demands. And I'm not actively trying to solve any problems out here. I'm not sitting in front of a computer. I'm not scrolling on my phone. I'm not engaged in technology in the way that I am when I'm, like the rest of us, like we all are. Like anywhere that you can whip out your phone, chances are that's what you'll do. So yeah, being out here for reasons of just pure spiritual abundance, or regeneration, replenishment, restoration. I came across a fitness instructor online who had a reel one time that really, it gave me so much to work with. Her name is Jamie Carborough, and on Instagram I think she is Ragamuffin or Fitness Ragamuffin or Ragamuffin Fitness. Jamie, Jamie Car, Car Barugh or something like that. I'll link her in the show notes. But one of the things she was saying was, when you are out, engaging in your movement, like really reclaim the joy of it, the pleasure of it by bringing the senses, allowing your senses to be part of the experience, really get out of your head. And she said, notice, what sensations you're aware of when you are walking or whatever it is that you're doing. And at the time I would have been in the water more than anything else. I was swimming, and I took her advice and I started paying attention to the sensory experience of what I was doing. And when I'm in the water, when I'm swimming, there is a certain sound of water lapping. If I'm not moving all that much, that is just so nourishing and so, I don't know, I just love it. But then of course there are all the different sensations of the water on your skin, and if you're swimming in a lake, there are different layers of temperature in a lake, the surface of the lake is the warmest, and then as you go down, even if you extend your feet, if you are vertical in the water and you extend your body, just extend it to stand as such in the water, you'll notice as you go down through the layers that the water is colder the deeper down you go. Now, that might seem like common sense, and it is when you think about it, but when you are experiencing it, it's a really interesting sensation to play with, to just travel up and down through the temperature of the water. And then, that lapping sound, and then the sounds of when your head is under the water or you're exhaling into the water, all those things. But right now, as I am strolling, I'm going to see how much you can pick up. So I'll start with what you can't sense here, which is I'm going to have to paint a picture for you of the scene. So I am on a gravelly country road, and by road, really what I mean is we have a word here, bóithrín, and bór is road in the Irish language, and bóithrín is small road or little road. And so we have all these bóithríns, and a bóithrín is the kind of road where it's a small paved gravelly road that has a grass verge running along the middle. And so it is winding out in front of me and winding out behind me, and there's nobody else on it. And it's very narrow. It's probably only maybe 6 to 8 feet wide. And each side of the bóithrín, of the grass verge, is probably 2 feet maybe wide. So it's very small. And I am looking out at it's spring. It's May now, and in the Celtic calendar, that is the season of Bealtaine. And Bealtaine is the direct opposite of Samhain, which is the stillness of winter. So we are in the most robust, active phase of the Celtic year, let's say. And so everything is, in its fullness. Everything is just round, like I'm looking at all the bushes and the trees. It's just round and full. There's baby's breath out on the side of this little bóithrín. There are buttercups around. There are seeds, dandelion seeds floating in the air. There are hawthorn trees, just immense, by the side of the road and just swaying with the very light breeze. And either side of this bóithrín are fields, mostly empty. We have just passed, on my left, we have just passed a field in which there are beehives. And we're about to approach a field where there will be cattle. But on my right side, the fields are empty and wild. And they're not at all manicured or mown or anything like that. They are just existing and budding and full of life. And beyond the immediate backdrop, let's say, of these fields and the bushery and the trees and all of that, there's the backdrop of the hills of both Tipperary and Clare. I can see the hill of Towntinna over in Tipperary and the masts on top of those hills. And in Clare, I can see the I don't know what those hills are called, but and then there is in between them, because I can't see the foothills, I'm just seeing the peaks. And in between those hills of Tipperary and Clare, there is just sky, and beneath that sky is the River Shannon. And so I also see a lone walker heading in my direction, so I'm just going to pull over here I'm leaning now on a gate, looking into one of these empty fields. So everything is green and lush, and there are tufts of grass coming up into this field here that I'm looking into. So that's what I see. And of course there's a lot of insect activity happening too. There's like clusters of flies in the air, like in small swarms. And like I said, there are those dandelion seeds. So everything is kind of out and doing its thing. So we're back out on the road. So I'm going to be quiet now for, let me do 60 seconds, okay? Let's do a little meditation. I'm going to set my watch. I'm going to give us 1 minute. And in that minute I'm going to give you an invitation. And that is to close your eyes and just notice what you hear in this minute of silence. And as you are listening, observe as well, pay attention like to what these sounds, what they invite in you. So as you are listening and hearing these sounds, do any images come to mind? What kind of thoughts or feelings come to mind? What kind of imagery or memories? Like, does your imagination take you anywhere? Notice also any kind of longings that come up in that space. And just be with it all. Just notice it all. And enjoy this just little reprieve to be in nature. And hopefully my microphone will pick up enough for you to meditate on. Okay, starting now. Okay, so that was just 60 seconds, and I hope that you could hear some things. We are just coming up on the cattle now who are walking up to the fence with, if I was to read the body language, it's somewhere between curiosity and, you know, like there's one cow looking at me right now who is communicating the actual audacity of you to be walking by my field. So maybe it's to me, maybe it's to the dog, maybe I'm projecting, which I probably am. Anyway, getting back to, this sensory experience. It would be nice for you could even press stop now and do it now, and then come back to if you wanted, come back to the recording. But if you are to record in your journal what kind of experience you had, and what just that 60 seconds of being vicariously in nature brought up for you. So going back to Jamie's advice, one of the reasons that I love this walk in particular is the sensory experience of walking on this gravel path. It's not fully gravel. There is like I don't know what you would call it. Like it's probably a rolled stone. It's not a concrete path. It's not hard. It is a kind of a stone mud path as such, but there's lots of gravel on top. And I absolutely love this sound. Hi, moo cows. I absolutely love the sound of my shoes travelling in that gravel and crunching. Do you hear it? I love that crunch sound. And I also love the sensation of the crunch under my feet. It's just so satisfying. And I'm walking very slowly because that's what I'm kind of focused on. I'm enjoying the sound and the sensation of the crunching beneath my feet. So let's move on to what we can hear. Of course, there is the gravel sound of me walking. There is the birds. The birds are just fantastic. They're so full of chatter. I heard something lovely and I don't know how true it is, and I kind of don't care because I just like it. But apparently when the birds start vocalizing in the morning, it is a way of both, like saying to the community, yep, I'm still here. I still made it. I still live in this tree. I made it through the night. And, still here. So, how are yous all doing? And apparently that's what all of that morning chit chat is about, is all the birds declaring their survival through another dark night. And I just thought that was lovely, And of course, at this time of the year, the birds are very, very active. I was outside the other night, and during the night, I heard birds. So, we have very long days here in Ireland at this time of year. We're approaching the summer solstice. And by the time the solstice arrives, we will probably have daylight until maybe 11, maybe after even, maybe a little after 11 p.m. Daylight now is what we will have, and we will have it from probably about 4 in the morning-ish. So, as opposed to the winter, where it is dark until maybe 8 or maybe even 8:30 a.m. and it will get dark from 3:30, 4 p.m. onwards. So right now the birds are at their most active. They are getting their least amount of sleep. And actually, so am I. I'm sleeping less at the moment, and I sleep more in the winter. And so nature is good for teaching us that these rhythms and the rhythm and the pace of life, and even of ourselves as part of that life, change throughout the season, and that's normal and not something that we have to investigate or wonder why. Unless, of course, it isn't working for you, but that's another day's work. So, what else do I hear? I am hearing the occasional flutter of a bird emerging from a ditch. One has just done that to my right side, has emerged from a ditch and flown down into a tiny little stream. It's not a stream because it's not running, so it is, but it is a kind of or else maybe it is a stream, but it's just a very lazy stream because it's not I wouldn't be able to hear the stream. But she has just gone from the ditch into the stream for a little drink, maybe, and run up alongside the stream under the ditch. So I love that there's like underworlds here too. There's so much that my eye can't see. Maybe you can hear this. That is the wind or the breeze. The breeze kind of like kicking up into a wind. And I'm hearing the sound of distant traffic. But not in an intrusive way. It's very distant. And also because I know it's there. So my brain has kind of placed it as well. I hear distant dog or dogs barking. In another few months now, we will also hear the cuckoo. Around July time, I think, is when, or July or August, maybe June even, is when the cuckoo starts making her noise, and I just love that noise. There used to be, or that sound, I won't call it a noise. There used to be a cuckoo who lived in the field behind where I lived years ago. Not too far from here. And I used to just love when I'd hear her coming, and she'd be there for a very short while, and then she'd leave. I should really get better at identifying these birds. I don't know what that was, but it's probably a tit. Anytime I have identified a bird singing that just caught my attention, it's usually some kind of a tit. I think it's the great tit we have here. I mean, we've lots of them. We've lots of tits. But anyway, and now I'm walking by a beautiful hawthorn bush, just huge. And these are, in Ireland, if there's a hawthorn bush in the middle of a field and that field is being cleared, they won't clear the bush. It's kind of a folklore thing that the hawthorn bush has an association to the fairy world, which is the other world, which really is the spiritual world. And there is a kind of a long-standing, I'll say superstition, but also like a reverence for the hawthorn tree, and a sense that it would be bad luck to get rid of it. So, but this one is right on the edge of a field, so no dilemma there. Yeah. I'm just listening. Oh, now I hear the trickle of the stream. Hold on. Yes. Well, now I have never noticed that before on this walk. Don't know, can you hear it? It just sounds like a cistern. Okay. So now we are entering through to another part of... So this trail has like a couple of sections because, there's like gates, like little wooden gates. You hear the gate? Do you hear it? So that's the wooden gate. So we're just entering onto another stretch. So this is where the bóithrín turns into a small lane. This is no longer a bóithrín. So a bóithrín is something that a car could drive up. It's very much a one car only situation. But this walkway is like two bóithríns that I don't know if converge is the right word, but they kind of split around a field, and then there's this little pathway that joins the two bóithríns again, and that's where the walking trail is. So the bóithrín splits in two, and the walk or the trail has a very small pathway that's pedestrian only, that joins the two bóithríns, and that's what I'm on now. So they're all the things I can hear. Let me tell you what I can feel. Well, the most present, most accessible sensation right now is, actually there's two. It's funny how when you start tuning into it, they become, you become more aware. But the most accessible is the sensation of the breeze against my skin. I'm wearing a sleeveless t-shirt under a pair of corduroy dungarees, but there's a lovely gentle breeze just caressing my skin, and it is warmish. There is a little bit of a chill in it too, like if there was no sun out, which there is. That breeze would probably make you cold, or at least chilly. But right now it's lovely and cooling and refreshing. I can also feel the sun, which is not right up above me, but pretty high at the moment. What time of day have we got? It is now, yes, it's just afternoon. And the sun is highish in the sky, and I can feel the heat of the sun down on my forehead on my left side. I also have the sensation, of course, as I mentioned earlier, of the gravel through my shoes. And then as well of my, the little wisps of hair. I have my hair up in a ponytail, but there are always those wisps and ends that, are a little bit disobedient and don't like being in the hair tie and always seem to escape. And so they're just kind of like flapping around my head. So I feel that. And then as for smells, as I was walking into the area, they're doing a bit of, I don't know what you call it, tree felling, harvesting, I guess, of some trees. And there was a beautiful smell of, cut trees as I was walking in, but I don't smell that now from where I'm at. And just passing, just noticing all the beautiful daisies and buttercups on this path on either side of me. I suppose I should take some images for you for the show notes. Let me see if I can do that without cutting you off. Yeah, gotta love the wild daisies and the buttercups. When we were kids, and maybe you too, we used to put the buttercups under each other's chin, and that was to see if you liked butter, apparently. I don't know where we heard that, but that was one of the things that we used to do. And of course, we used to make daisy chains with the daisies, and get stung by the stingers, and then hunt for dock leaves so that we could rub those stings and cure ourselves with the dock leaves. So I also have a story about this trail, and the very first time I walked it. I love to walk in a trail that is looped. It's just something my brain prefers over walking to a specific point and then returning. I really love a looped trail. This one is probably, I don't even know how far it is or how long it is. That's another thing I used to do. It used to matter how long I was walking, either time-wise or distance, so then I could get my calculator out and do my calculations as to how many points that earned me or how many points that erased from my, my point count of the day. But I don't do that anymore. I'm literally just here for the enjoyment of it and the healing of it, really. But anyway, the very first time I walked this trail, I had heard about it, and I knew that it was a loop, and people had told me about it. And it was about a month after my father died. And maybe it was a month. Was it a month? Or was it longer? But anyway, it wasn't too long after my father died. And my father died in July, and I do know that I was walking this trail in August, and it was a very, very rainy day. And I was in a very raw place. And aside from the obvious, which was, the shock and the shock of my dad's diagnosis and death being so quick and big and all of that, I was also holding other stuff. I had some conflict in friendship. I had and I was still unmedicated at this point for a yet to be formally diagnosed hormonal mood disorder, PMDD it's called, premenstrual dysphoric disorder or something like that, and that is wild for anybody who hasn't experienced it. I actually would not believe, unless I've experienced it myself, I would probably not have believed. I would have thought people were exaggerating, only for I've experienced it myself. But anyway, I was in the throes of that, and I was probably in, a spiral, a downward spiral of that cycle, and because it is cyclical and it kind of comes and goes, and so I was walking this trail, and it also was raining. So the whole scene, as you can imagine, it was mucky, it was raining, it was grim. And that's just, the inside. But the outsides matched the insides. In other words, there was just, it was just unpleasant and just awful. And I wasn't in a good place. Anyway, I was walking this trail and I sprained my ankle. I rolled over on it, twisted it, and then my body just threw its weight to the ground to spare my ankle. This is something that is a recurring thing anyway in my life. I'm very prone to turning on my ankle and sprains. So this happened, and it was one of those things where it was like it was the last straw. That was it. That was the tipping point. And so I lay on the ground, having, been thrown on the ground, my ankle just throbbing, and I just surrendered. Like, I just literally just put my arms out to the side, because I fell, I guess, on my side, and then I just flipped myself over onto my back, threw my arms out to my sides, and I screamed. I just screamed, and the crying that came out of me was like a child. It was like primal. And I just, if you've ever had that, where you just let go, just been holding in so much and so frustrated with it as well, like just the frustration I had with this constant collapsing into a depressive state that overwhelmed every coping strategy that I had, and no tool could get through it. I felt so powerless and so frustrated and everything else, and tired and exhausted by it. So I screamed into the just into the rain. And I stayed there for a while, just, crying. And then I heard and slash sensed movement on the path, and I turned my head to see that there was somebody walking towards me. So I pulled myself up off the ground, and I just leaned on the fence, and I turned my back away from the trail as this man was approaching. I could see it was a man who was approaching, and he had a young boy with him. So I put my hood up. I had a raincoat on, and I put my hood up, and I just hunched myself over this gate. And my body was still heaving with the crying, that kind of like, the way kids cry when they lose their breath. So that was it. I was trying to just, at that point, just trying to stay composed, not doing a great job until the person passed. And rather than pass, I heard him slowing down, and the next thing I felt a hand on my shoulder. And silence. He didn't say anything. And so I turned into him. I turned around, and he just kept his hand on my shoulder and just nodded with me. And then he kind of like took a breath, and I knew that he was inviting me to take a breath. And it was just, he gave me a minute, and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, No, I'm not. I said, "I'm just having a really hard day." And he said, "That's okay." And he said, "Would you like to walk with us?" Like they were, do you want us to walk with you, like to get out of here, kind of a thing. And I said, "Well, how far in am I?" Because remember, I was on a loop, and it was my first time, and I didn't know where I was. And he said, "About halfway." And I said to him, "No, well then I'll just keep going." And he stayed with me for another, a couple of breaths, and then, nodded, and off he went. And I hobbled on, and I just slowed down, and I continued, and I made my way through the trail. And then I thought about it afterwards, and even while I was, just in the aftermath of that having happened, I was also, like I said, I was going through things other than, the obvious at the time, and one of them was it was like my journey of recovery. I was only 2 years sober at that point, and I was still raw from it. And there was so much I hadn't resolved, and there was so much I hadn't yet learned. And I was in pain more than I wasn't. And I had opened a door that I couldn't reverse my way through. So I had begun a process that had to be seen through. It was the only way out is through, kind of a situation. And I knew that. I knew that I had opened Pandora's box in choosing sobriety. I like choosing to heal whatever this is, whatever it is that has me so unhappy. And, sobriety became part of that choice and that healing. And that became such a metaphor for me, that encounter. Like I had walked into this unfamiliar space. I didn't know what the terrain was like. I did not know the path. I knew there was a path, and I knew it was a loop, and I knew other people enjoyed it and recommended it. But I had never been before. And on this very first time I encountered, my own pain and suffering. And I met a stranger on the path who offered to walk me back out the way I had come. Do you want to go back, in other words? And I often wonder what I would have said if he had have said, "Oh, you're just at the beginning. There's still a long way to go." But because he said to me, like, you're pretty much halfway, I thought, well, it's going to hurt no matter which way I go now. I might as well keep going. And that, it just served me as such a metaphor for this journey that I was on and I'm still on. But where I was at that point just felt, like I couldn't keep going, or why should I keep going? Or what is, you know? And I realized that I had walked a significant enough distance in that the coming out was, or coming through was, like I was onto, I was nearly there kind of thing. And nearly there, it's not that I thought I was nearly there, because how long is a piece of string? I had no idea how long this path would be. But it gave me that kind of trust and that confidence and that courage to just keep going, because I had travelled a significant enough distance that I was already at a point. And it was a point of no return. And it was a point of change and transformation. So that is the story of this trail, and I just love it. So I'm looking at a sign here on this gate. So we've just come to the end of the pathway, joining the two bóithríns and the birds. It's a sign here that says the birds that you would find here. The blackbird, of course, and that's probably the one that I'm sure we've heard the blackbird. I don't see a tit anywhere. The great tit doesn't seem to be represented, which kind of makes me feel a bit silly. And we have another dog and human approaching, so I'm just going to get out of their way, because Molly is new here, as they say, and maybe does not know the etiquette. Yeah, another bird that we see here is, well, I remember it from Sligo more than anything, and it's a bird that I love because it's very interesting. It's called the skylark. Hello. He's all right. They're friendly. They could be friends. Buddy likes Molly, I think.
He's not neutered now, so.
Okay, and she's recently adopted, so she would be just tolerating it. I'll keep walking this way. See you later. Bye. Now, a little friendly encounter. Well done, Molly. Good girl. Now, Molly just endured a big intrusive sniff, but she did really well. Anyway, the skylark is a beautiful bird that I remember from Sligo. So the skylark's story is that they, hopefully I won't get this wrong, but they nest in the ground, as far as I know. And because of that, they have this drill that they do where they fly up into the air. They fly up into the sky and they just linger there and kind of hover, and that's where they sing from. They don't sing from the ground. They don't sing from their nest. They fly up into the air and pretend that they have nests up there, so as not to attract predators to their ground dwellings. I thought that was fascinating. And when I was living in Sligo, it was much more obvious to me, because there was no trees around where I was living, and I would see this bird hovering, singing in the sky, hovering, and I was like, what is that bird doing? And I would see it on my walks. And of course then I investigated, and that's what I learned, and I was like, well, isn't nature just cool? So I'm not coming to the end of the walk. We still have, another bit to go. We're still only about halfway through, as we say. But I'm going to let you go now, because I think that's enough walk and talk for today. Oh my goodness, I see a shrew. There's a shrew crossing the road right in front of us. It's tiny. Oh my God. Yeah, nature is just so cool. Anyway, if anybody doesn't know what a shrew is, it's like a tiny miniature mouse, but it has a very long, pointy nose. And our former cat, Walter, was very mean to shrews. He was the shrew ripper, is what he was. And that's how I became familiar with the shrew, is because he would bring them into the house after having had, and sometimes mid-rip, if you know what I mean. But anyway, it's lovely now that I end this lovely nature podcast with a violent scene. But anyway, I hope that this has offered you something nourishing, something to think about, something to draw from. I hope that it inspires you to, go and have a stroll yourself in whatever bit of nature you can find, even if it's just open the window and sit by the window and listen. Just see what you can see, hear what you can hear, what can you feel, what can you smell, and and just fill your cup in this way. God knows we need it. It's very distressing times to be a human right now, with any bit of conscience or a heart or a bit of empathy. And we're allowed to take this time out to do nothing and just to be human and let ourselves be part of this natural world that actually is, a source of peace and comfort and reassurance, I hope, and joy. Yeah, so that's my little slice of happy anyway. So we'll talk soon. Thanks for being here.